Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending on wherever you are, gentlemen. This is Och, brother, where art thou? Episode 0. I'm Ross. You may know me as Blue Rose Coat, and joining me is my very talented and charming friend, all the way down in Bristol in the southwest, Pietro. How you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm good. Good, thanks, man. Yeah, good to be kicking off Och Brothers. How was that? How's Och Brothers?
That was beautiful, man. That's great. I feel like,
Um,
as a nation, as a population, the Scots aren't too bad at letting people do their accent. I feel like, having lived in Liverpool for nearly 7 years, I think the Scousers are the worst at letting you do their accents. They do not like it at all. I'm not suggesting they've got a chip on their shoulder. I'm just telling you what my personal experience is.
that's and
Um,
that's you know what? That's funny that because that's what this podcast is all about. It's about personal experiences.
For real, man. For real, for real. So there's going to be loads of opinions, and that's okay. And some of them you may like, some of them you may not like. But let's not cancel people. I think this is it's about having a space where people are permitted to say the wrong thing, and giving them a pass. So please, please, God, give me a pass. It's been I've been chatting nonsense about putting something together for quite a long time, and you and me have been chatting about it for a couple of months now. So it's great to finally get your beautiful face on the wires, and I think probably the best thing to do for this edition episode is just to give a bit background about who we are and what we want to do, who you are. I think a lot of people that will be watching this will know me from my music and my profound oversharing over a period of more than a decade. So I think the low hanging fruit will be to let people know who you are. You're certainly the balanced one, perhaps, in this equation, and that's okay. This is about being guys, and being honest. I think there's a real space for people that are not maniacs, that are not trying to sell things, people that have reasonably ordinary experiences of being dads or brothers or friends, and sharing those experiences. What I want to learn, as a guy that didn't grow up with a dad or really any male influence, I'm really keen to get some advice from people whom I admire, who may or may not be outstanding in their field, but people that I feel have got a kind of they got knowledge, they got wisdom to give, they got wisdom to impart. That I'm keen to learn from other men, because I think that that'd be really useful. Be useful for me, and if it's useful for me, then it may well be useful for those listening and watching.
Yeah, wicked. Well, for me, I mean, my name's Pietro. I'm a friend of yours, Ross, and I too know you through the music. That's how we kind of like connected many years ago, and have kind of stayed semi in touch. More so recently, obviously, over the years. And yeah, I'm a father of three. I live in Bristol. I'm on a second career, and I would like to create something with this podcast that fills a void that's kind of been taken over by some pretty well-known nefarious folk. I think there's a space to take back the conversation, and to show other people that there are some men out there that are trying to wrestle back the narrative about what it is to be a man. I have two young boys. I also have a girl. So lots invested for me, to make sure that men are spoken about in a positive way, and that men are leading that conversation first and foremost, and learning, listening, and maybe pushing back sometimes.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some pushing back, and that's okay. I read recently that the best way you can teach a young boy to be a man is by loving his mother.
Yeah, that's a good
Really
one. Yeah.
powerful. Yeah, it's really powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've known each other from our London days, so we're talking maybe up to about 15 years ago. I met you when you were an actor of some repute. I think it's fair to say that you're some way into your second career now. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a successful advertiser now. And I think that by virtue of social media, it's been great to watch. You know, it's been great for me to watch you grow with Sophie and your kids, and just watch you develop your life from a distance, but also be able to, you know, have football banter and you know, political chats back and forth over the years, and seeing you when we've had an opportunity to see each other. So yeah, I'm excited to do this. I think you and I have got complementary perspectives, but enough kind of experience where we're not just going to be aping each other's opinions. You know, I think that's fair to say. The whole thing started for me because I was having a chat with my partner Michelle, and uh, I was saying, you know, more and more I'm becoming concerned with the malign way that that masculinity is being talked about by men and women today, actually. And I said, you know, I'm chatting to men more and more about this stuff, and she said, you know, well, you're not going to turn into an Andrew Tate type character, are you? Can you imagine me, you know, as this kind of international, you know, a people trafficker? I don't think it's going to happen, but you know, I got what she was saying. And then we went on to chat about how there was a real dearth of positive role models in the public eye, but when she thought about the men in her life, it was you know, replete with, you know, good examples of dads, of friends, of brothers. So I just thought, yeah, it's important. Just as you said, that it's important to stake our own claim, really, to be transparent, you know, to have I guess, a fairly ordinary male conversation, and show people that it's okay to talk about men's stuff without it being anti-feminist or anti-woman, or to have any other agenda than um, being compassionate and considerate around men's well-being. You know, men's well-being. And I'm someone who has, over the years, you know, suffer with my own mental health problems. You know, I'm in recovery. I've been in recovery for a good few years now. It's been a solid foundation on which I've built my life. I've been able to build you know, a successful relationship, and a family, and a career. And all of that has come through sharing with people. It's about taking a risk. It's come through being honest with people and telling people how I feel as I feel it. You know, and I think that ought to come through in the conversations that we have with the men that we speak with. So I, I guess, you know, I put together a little questionnaire that I sent out to loads and loads of guys. Got in touch when I said that I was going to start doing something. I don't want to use the P word. We're not going to call it a podcast yet, but I said we're going to start our conversations. I sent out these questionnaires, and people came back. Feedback was really interesting reflections. So I'll take you through some of the some of the questions. The big one, you know, the chief one that everything else kind of fed into was, you know, what are your thoughts on masculinity today? You know, how would you describe, you know, a kind of a strong man?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one, and it's. I think you might have even sent me the questionnaire about 3 or 4 times, asking me to complete it, because that's one of the ones that I really, really struggle. And I think I know where you're going to go with this, Ross. I think you're going to probably say that people went around the houses, people struggled to answer it, people were afraid to answer it, possibly, because it's a tough one. Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer this question. So, I mean, this podcast is, for me, is going to be a way to explore it with other people, because whenever I try to put some thoughts down and define masculinity or being a man, I don't manage to find anything that couldn't be covered by a woman. But men and women are different. I know that. And I'm very comfortable saying that. That's fine. But, you know, there are, you know, I think of strength. I think of stoicism. I think of, um, you know, there's all sorts of things I might think of that might equate to masculinity and being a man. But then I'm like, my wife exhibits all of those things.
Sure.
So,
Sure,
so
and that's really honest. And actually, you're right to say that there was loads of there seemed to be a load of reluctance to to be forthright in answering the question. And maybe it was maybe like you, people felt that they just didn't have the ability to answer the question. But I also got the sense that people felt like they didn't have the permission structure to be honest. They were scared of saying the wrong thing, or things being answers being misinterpreted as being anti-women or misogynistic, and that's a problem that we're going to come up with again and again and again. I think that's part of the motivation behind having these conversations, Pietro. Certainly for me, the traditional kind of nuclear family roles of being a provider, being the strong and silent type. Society's evolved, and I think that there's a gap. There's a gap now. There's a real. I feel like it was almost easier to be, uh, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. It was easier to grow up as a boy. Your path was laid out, and as rightly, equality has grown, and women have been able to explore and enjoy the kind of rights and freedoms that we have. That natural pathway has been eroded because um, women don't need us anymore. The same way that in
Well,
the way
I
we
was
did.
going to say, Ross, I was going to say it's been eroded because it needed to be,
Yeah,
and rightly so. But it obviously opens up the question of the people that were on that path that were then kind of teaching us, our fathers, or were teaching us what the path ahead looks like. That path ahead changed. So at some point we've got a little bit lost. Um, and yeah, I think that's why, like I said in previously, the certain people have taken over the conversation that are trying to kind of drag us back a little bit, and have got really, really simple solutions to very, very complex questions.
yeah.
And
And
I
that,
don't think
let
anybody,
me
yeah,
just interrupt there as well. That I think that's the touch point. The point is we don't have the answers. We've just got loads of questions, and perhaps we can find some answers together. I think that that is the absolute ethos of the conversations that we'll be having.
yeah, 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 absolutely.
And this whole sense of being lost too. I think it's true of loads of young men today, and I think that sense of being lost in my own life came from a lack of purpose, and I think that in previous generations it was almost inculcated that we had a sense of duty, a duty to our society, to our community, to our nation,
Mm,
and things like world wars focus the mind, and we've lived through
yeah.
unprecedented generations of growth and prosperity. So with things being so easy, our minds have lost focus. Things ain't so easy anymore, and it's good. It's good because I think that conversations have started around looking at where we can find a sense of duty and purpose, and where we can serve in our lives. And I'm sure that from that, the contentment and the sense of having more good days than bad days naturally follow from that.
Yeah, I think, yeah, contentment's a big word for me. um, I think it's something I've been seeking out, um, and you don't know what it looks like really and honestly until you've got it. And actually, it comes and goes, it ebbs and flows. Like sometimes you feel super, super content, and those are the times when you go, ah, yes, okay. The choices I've made, the path I'm on, this is great. And then, the times you feel, you don't feel so content, and that's perhaps when you have to make some adjustments or some changes. But yeah, contentment's a big word for me. Um,
Where did this big lie come from? You know, when did we start to, as a culture, when did we start to believe that we had an entitlement to being happy all of the time? It's just
yeah.
never been the case. It's never been the human experience. Yet it's a lie that we're happy to consume, and feel like we pine for, when it's not there. And I'm here to tell you, you know, I've never been happy all the time, and I'll never be happy all the time. And
No, I certainly wouldn't trust anybody that professed that they were happy all the time. That's complete madness. There's no light without dark, right? The idea is you have more light than dark if you can possibly manage it. But the ups and downs of life they shouldn't be avoided. There's so much to learn. There's so much to solve. Life's a bit of a puzzle, really. And if you find the fun in trying to solve it, knowing full well you're never going to solve it, you celebrate those wins.
so this is for me, it's about, where can I get some practical advice? You know, where can I get, how do I look at, I've got to look at these conversations that we have with yourself and with the men that we talk to. What can I take? Which lessons can I take from all the conversations from each of the conversations that we have? And a big thing in my life has been building a network of a few good men that I can chat with, people that love me enough to tell me the truth, that won't co-sign, bad behavior or bad ideas, that will, if I'm going off piste, and I maybe need a bit of correction, then the men in my life that I have are strong enough to tell me that. They're confident enough in who they are and how they move, that they're confident enough to tell me. Those are the men that I gravitate towards. I'm interested in the relationships that you have in your life, and how do you
Mm.
foster friendships? How do you serve those relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of good, close pals and friends. They all differ. They all offer something different. Some are footy pals, some are music pals, some are parent pals. Um, Interestingly, on this point, I heard a guy say to me once that you should never trust a man with loads of mates, and it stuck with me for ages. And I know what he was intimating at. He was basically saying that you should only rely on yourself, right? That a man with lots of friends is weak. I'm pretty sure that's where we were going with that conversation. And I did for a time think about this quite a lot. I thought maybe I'm less of a person, maybe I'm not as strong of a person, of a man than I should be.
I would so strongly push back on that,
Yeah,
because the notion that there's a weakness in taking a risk and being vulnerable, I think it's the opposite is true, and I don't think there's any growth to be had. So listen, one of the best things that I've ever read, it was a great essay called Self-Reliance, by an American author from the 19th century, Ralph Waldo Emerson. He wrote this essay, which really totally changed my my perspective on life, and it's called Self-Reliance, and it's about having this. And it's absolutely about, having a courage in our uniqueness, in the fact that we are our own character, and growing our character, and having the courage of our convictions. And it's almost a reliance upon our best selves. Um, and I think what Emerson was talking about is absolutely right. We ought to be able to be who we are, and self-actualize in the way that Jung would talk about. However, I don't think what he was talking about was living like an island and not sharing with people.
mm,
And there's a real cravenness, and I don't mean that necessarily in an attacking way, but I think we're selling ourselves short if we don't reach out to pals. We're not learning, we're not growing, and actually, I may be, on a journey to trying to rely on my best self. But part of that journey is by surrounding myself with people who I can have a temperature check with. You know, I can ask them, is this okay? Can I check my thinking? And it's not about hierarchy. It's not about anything other than, do you know what, brother? What do you think about that?
But how do you choose those people? I mean, y- how do you know you're not a poor choice of character, judge of character? Like, yeah, how do you go about choosing the right people to give you feedback, like the
So
right friends?
okay, I don't know. So for me, uh, I gravitate towards people who have an experience of life that I'm interested in. You know, so for a long
Mm,
time in recovery. Okay, so in my life, right, I had always been attracted to men that were tough, men that were uncompromising. I was looking for a dad figure. I was looking for I was looking for the personification of what I thought it was to be a man. You know, to be hard, to be feared, and also charismatic. And I don't think there's anything wrong with charisma, but you know, there has to be charisma matched to some sort of moral fiber, uh, and uh, and it's the same in meetings, in fellowship meetings. You know, I would be drawn to people that would speak really well. You know, and there's a saying, you know, in recovery that, you know, you can speak really well at a meeting for an hour and a half and then go home and kick the cat, you know,
mm,
and it's like, there's no point. You know, it's like, if you want to know someone, follow them home, you know, what's going on in their home.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm drawn to people that I know. So the things for me are a lack of entitlement. I'm not interested in entitlement. I'm interested in people that are, um, and nuanced thinkers. So people that aren't, you know, I think we're all naturally tribal, but I'm not interested in people that aren't keen to examine their own thinking. You know, I'm not interested in people that will subscribe to a set of beliefs or doctrine just because their tribe believe in that. Okay, I'm not interested in, you know, I'm drawn to people that have happy kids or unhappy kids, and they're there for them. You know, people that are in long term relationships, because it's something that I struggle with for a long time. You know,
Mm,
I just wanted to start again. I want to start again. Let's start again. I remember reading this great thing by Joni Mitchell where she talked about um, it's really easy to start again in a relationship because you could just get to present, you know, the brand new sexy Ross, you know, and then the luster fades, and you're
yeah,
just
yeah.
with, you know, these grouchy farting mammals sat next to you on the sofa, and actually that's where the real work starts. Um, and and that's what I want. You know, it'd be really easy to spend my life on Tinder, you know, and chase, you know, you know, the pleasures of the flesh, but they don't um feed my spirit. They
Mm,
don't. And as I've got older, you know, I'm far more interested in affairs of the spirit than affairs of the flesh. It's really easy to make mistakes with people, and that's okay. And I also think that I've had loads of pals that have come into my life, and then you know, we're pals for a season, and you learn from people. And you know, I'm not damning, you know, myself or my own judgment, but I think judgment is something that's honed. I don't think it's necessarily something that we're born with. You know, it's trial and error. It's making mistakes. No, and sometimes I can be a bit of a ban. You know, and people don't want to be around me anymore, and they'll go out of my life, and that's okay. But I think we walk with people for seasons in our lives, and I learn things from people. But I'm interested in in continuing to develop that network of
mm.
pals. And how do you do it, Pietro?
I think on a very, very simple level, I've always looked to put myself around people I aspire to be like. Um, and I remember leaving my hometown of Huddersfield and going to university and thinking, all right, this is my opportunity to be myself, and whoever hangs around me, I'll know will want to hang around me. Like they should be good friends. There should be people that like
And
me.
was that something that was really in your mind at the time? Because
Yeah,
you
yeah,
were a young man at that point, so that's
yeah.
quite prescient insight. for a young man.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it happened because it's a long time ago now, or whether I just thought I didn't have a particularly strong friendship group, or whether I aspired for a little bit more out of my, the classic thing of wanting to get out of your hometown and see a little bit more of the world. So yeah, I think that's it fundamentally for me, and and the aspiration that I see, the thing that I see in other people that I generally aspire to have is the thing that you don't have, right? For you it was maybe a father figure. For me, it was like I for long periods of my life, I've not had control over my temper, or I've not had great control over my finances, or so it's not it makes sense to me that one of the first people I met at college, when I went to college, and that is now my longest friend and a great friend, um, is potentially the most sensible man in my life.
Beautiful.
He's a he is also annoyingly one of the best looking people in my life as well. So
Tell me what
uh,
you love about him, man. I'd love to hear what you love about him.
I love how calm he is. Although it infuriates me how late he is often, and how long he takes to do things. But he's a
No
calm
excuse for
man.
lateness, man. No excuse.
those things go hand in hand for him.
That's one mark down in my book already. Yeah.
But at the time, I think he was a guy that he looked great. He was kind. I think my view of people that were good looking and cool at the time was that they had an edge of a nastiness to them, or they weren't particularly nice to be around, or they had their own problems, whatever. But he was open and lovely and wonderful, and he wanted to be my friend. So that, I mean, that's Steve. Shout out to Steve. You know who you are, man.
Love Steve.
That's my boy Steve. And I think in later years, I had bosses that I worked with that would deal with situations in a way that I'd never seen before. Maybe potentially situations where I might get angry or feel that the person had slighted me,
Mm.
and actually, the person I'm thinking of would come at a completely different angle, and a much more humanist view of the person opposite him that had that I would have viewed as slighting me, is a human being and is potentially having a bad day, and would almost kill everybody with kindness. But he didn't, he didn't roll over. He wasn't somebody that could be taken the piss out of. He was still a strong,
Yeah. I,
man,
I'm
but
just
he was kind. He was
yeah.
great. And again, I'm going to have another shout out because he deserves it. That's Barry,
Go on,
my
Baz.
boy Barry, Bazza, Busy Baz. And he really, I guess when I moved from my hometown of Huddersfield to London, he was probably my father figure there. Although I wasn't sure I knew it at the time. Um, and he really taught me how to be a kind. I think he really showed me that you can be just kind to people, and that you really should consider what somebody else might be going through. So yeah, he's a great role model. But yeah, I mean that's how I've chosen. Me wanting to aspire to be somebody. So I guess the difficulty, and the thing that maybe we want to discuss at some point, is what if you just aspire to be something that's nefarious, or not particularly, because maybe you do want to be like that. Maybe you do want to follow in the footsteps of those people. But how do we? Where's the point that you can change that trajectory for somebody and get them to aspire to be somebody that's a little bit more good for them?
Sure. There's a reticence now to question people and their behavior and their conduct, because we've lived in such a permissive culture for such a long time. There have been, generation after generation, certainly the last two generations have been missing clear guidance and direction. And I missed it. I missed a guiding figure, a guiding, I was incorrigible. I would have been very hard to direct, but I certainly could have done with some direction, from a strong male. Um, And I think that's where society breaks down.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I was, when you say you'd have been hard to direct, um,
Oh, I
I
was
certainly,
hard to direct, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was a little prick.
But so was I at school, and I went through years and years and years of thinking that my teachers didn't treat me very nicely, and then I thought, I mean, they are teachers, and they should hold the higher ground. But I guess this feeds into the idea of how people learn, though, as well, right? I always wanted to be academic. Teachers laughed at me when I said I wanted to go to uni. One particularly, was like, "Oh, really?" Because he'd not seen anything, But like, I wanted to be. I guess I felt like I was probably fairly bright, but I just didn't learn in the way that school teaches.
Yeah.
So possibly why I was why when I found drama, that was how I could kind of access
And that's amazing. That's really
literature.
amazing.
Yeah.
For a long time, I felt really ashamed of my lack of qualifications or my lack of educational attainment because I also thought that I was a smart kid. And I was a smart kid. But because of what I experienced growing up, I was not capable of sitting still and concentrating. And I still struggle with that stuff.
Mm.
Um, I, and only just last month, I've written this new song. It's about it's a kind of a devotion to the poetry of Emily Dickinson, whose work I love. And this woman came up to me afterwards, and I get it quite a lot, but it really struck me. She said, I've been a teacher for 30 years, and I feel really sorry that we failed you.
Oh,
Yeah. But I had to stop her and say, school is never, the educational establishment does its best. I'm not saying that improvements can't be made, but there will always be kids that slip through the cracks. You can't. There's never going to be, 100% infallible safety net. And I don't regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. I've never been happier with the man that I am today, and all that pain didn't go to waste. It didn't go to waste. I think you get to the age of 24. 24 is an arbitrary number. Everyone's different. By the age of 24, I was more than capable of having agency and being responsible for my own life. And loads have to be responsible much younger. I've been living in London for 3 years by then, which was a baptism of fire, to say the least. But I wouldn't swap my journey. I couldn't swap my
no.
journey. It's made me the man that I am today. And again, I think character is not something we're born with. I think it's something that's shaped by how we respond to the experiences that befall us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, completely. And I think if you are somebody that falls into that kind of category of person that doesn't fit inside a particular box, then yeah, my advice would be just to give life time and don't panic. You travel if you
Yeah.
can.
Moved
Put
to
you put
London.
your yeah. Well, travel within the country. It doesn't have to be necessarily out, abroad. It's just like seeing different places and meeting and putting yourself in different scenarios. I mean, one of the things I say to most people is like, say yes, just say yes. Say
Yeah.
yes way more than you say no.
Yeah.
Because you'll find yourself in the most ridiculous situations because he said, "Yeah, okay, yeah, cool, I'll do that." I remember being on a bus once, um, and somebody called me and asked me if I could DJ. I'd never DJed in my life, but I remember exactly where I was sat on the bus, and he said, "Mate, have you ever DJed?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 a few times, yeah, yeah, all good, yeah." Uh, he went, "Oh, cool, because I need next week off." I was like, "Bingo, there we go." And I needed the money, right? It was a necessity that I had to say yes. So you're putting yourself in situations where you have to say yes to things. It's good, but yeah, I said, just if you show me how your system works, I'm sure it'll be fine. And I went along, 2 nights later, and he showed me how to push a few buttons, and within about 6 months, I was DJing my own night in Camberwell. So it's like, just say yes. If you build up that resilience, of putting yourself in a really tough position and trying to get out of it, or trying to just swim. So that, yeah, that's a bit of advice that I would give at people. But well, maybe one day I'll tell you about the time that I was in a dance group. But that's possibly for another, another time.
Oh,
Uh,
that's definitely
oh
booked.
yeah, bookmark that one. Yeah, but I think it's important to. I would say it's important to take time for yourself. I like to have equal measure hard work and enjoyment. So yeah,
Good
that's how
ratio.
I look after myself.
Yeah,
I've just discovered meditation. I don't want to be one of those people. I don't want to be another one of those people, but I have just discovered in the past like 6 to 8 months meditation, and it feels like it might be a bit of a game changer.
who would have thought? You know, we're only talking about 4,000 years worth of
Years.
Chinese. Imagine meditation has been really important for me. You know, it's been a kind of central tenet of my recovery. You know, and I actually use a meditation app, Sam Harris's meditation app called Waking Up, which is really good.
Mm.
And the it's really unfussy, it's really practical. And Harris he's profoundly anti-religion. Harris, yet despite that, has such a kind of insightful. Uh, Approach to meditation practice, which has really appealed to me, you know, as someone who is a man of faith. And again, it's, you know, that's the kind of thinking that I'm interested in, you know, not to write people off just because they have one particular belief. You know, there's loads to be taken from people. Just because you disagree with them on something doesn't mean you can't learn from them. So meditation has been an important thing for me. But yeah, there's no point in doing, you know, 15 minutes of meditation when your partner and your kids are losing their mind indoors. You know, I don't think God wants me to have 15 minutes alone if everything's going to hell in a handcart while I'm taking time for myself. So it's for me. It's been about you know, finding that balance. Exercise too. Exercise has been really important. You
Yeah.
know, I've definitely been to meetings and come away feeling worse, but I can tell you, unless I've sustained an injury, never once have I come back from a run and not felt better. Never once. You know, there's a chemical reason behind that. Once you
Yeah.
get the
Yeah.
adrenaline, and, you know, it's hard not to have a mindset shift. And if I'm a fatty, you know, I just feel bad. You know, you know, I've struggled with my weight. It's gone up and down all my life. And you know, I've eaten my feelings at different stages in my life. So exercise has been really important for me in moderating that stuff.
Yeah. 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 It's
Uh, I think that's us for today, Pietro. Thanks for coming on and bearing a little bit of your soul. I think people can hear the direction of travel and our good intentions. So join us on the road to hell. It's paved with these good intentions. We what I'd like to finish off with is what is exciting you at the moment.
Well, I would say, I think from the untrained eye, people would probably say that I'm going through a midlife crisis. However, they doesn't feel like much of a crisis for me. I am just loving life at the moment. I feel like I'm on a bit of uh, like a time of discovery. Life itself is exciting me at the moment. And I feel like I might be getting somewhere with some of the things that I've been trying to iron out for decades. So
Imagine that.
I'm just going to be really broad and say life. Life is exciting me at the moment.
Imagine that. Imagine that. I love it, man. I love it. Okay, well, listen, God bless you. Love to you and your family. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon with another Och Brother.
Where art thou? Cheers, buddy. Speak soon.